Think about the light hitting your eyes right now from the screen in front of you.
Most people probably just picture little particles,
Yeah, exactly. You probably imagine billions of tiny glowing spheres like, I don't know, microscopic baseballs flying through the air to reach you.
which is a very natural way to think about it.
Right, but what if I told you that entire concept of flight is just a complete illusion?
Oh, it completely shatters the classical view.
It really does. What if those photons aren't actually traveling through space at all, but rather space and energy are structurally unpacking themselves in this synchronized sequence? Today, we are completely tearing down the cosmic billiard table.
It is honestly a profoundly disorienting shift. I mean, we naturally want the universe to be mechanical. We want discrete, visible objects moving through an empty void.
Because it's easy to visualize.
Exactly. But the framework we are looking at today argues that this instinct, this need for little flying baseballs, is exactly what has been holding theoretical physics back for nearly a century.
And that framework is the newly published 2026 Photon Event Model, or PEM, from M-Frame Research. Okay, let's unpack this,
Let's do it.
because our mission for this deep dive is to fundamentally break and then entirely rebuild how you visualize light. But before we get into the heavy physics of it all, we need to understand the philosophy driving this model.
Which is so important.
Yeah, the researchers use this German phrase in their foundational papers, nicht ersetzen, aufschlüsseln.
Right, which translates roughly to do not replace, deconstruct.
Do not replace, deconstruct. I love that.
That is the heart of this entire movement. I mean, for decades, physics has been locked in this aggressive, almost territorial war.
Yeah, everyone fighting for the ultimate theory.
Precisely. You have quantum mechanics trying to explain the tiny stuff, and Einstein's general relativity trying to explain gravity and the massive stuff, and they famously, stubbornly refuse to work together.
They just don't mix.
No, they don't. And every new theory of everything that comes along tries to dominate the field and prove the others wrong. But PEM doesn't do that.
It's not trying to conquer physics.
No, it's a structural framework. It's meant to provide a shared underlying architecture where all these established theories can finally talk to one another.
But to get to that shared architecture, we first have to unlearn literally everything we were taught in high school science about what a photon actually is.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you're out there and you're still picturing that tiny glowing sphere zooming through a pre-made spacetime stage, you have to throw that image out the window right now.
Completely. You have to destroy the particle concept in your mind entirely.
Okay, so if it's not a particle, what is it?
Well, the PEM framework introduces a concept it calls the photon event source. It outright rejects the existence of a physical photon body flying through space.
Wait, no physical body at all?
None. Instead, they define the photon as a closed event. Basically, it is a local structural node where the action, the phase, and the geometry all converge simultaneously.
Okay, wait, let me process that. If it isn't a tiny sphere, is it a wave then? Like a continuous ripple moving across a pond?
You need to throw that out, too.
Oh, wow. Okay. No waves either.
Think about it this way. In classical physics, we think of movement as an object traveling from point A to point B. We treat A and B as two separate geographic locations on a map, and the particle is the traveler commuting between them.
Right, like a car driving from New York to Boston.
Yes. But the PEM model flips this completely in its very first pillar. The entire process, starting at A, transitioning through a middle state and arriving at B, is represented mathematically as a single closed transition.
Okay.
So A and B are not separate locations. They are two edge sides of the exact same, complete, undividable occurrence.
I really want to make sure you, the listener, can genuinely visualize this because it's so incredibly counterintuitive.
It's a huge leap.
So instead of picturing a train traveling from station A to station B, which is the old way, what if we picture a lightning strike?
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. We shouldn't view the lightning as a distinct, glowing ball of electricity traveling down from the clouds. The entire glowing, jagged line from the cloud to the ground is the single event happening all at once.
Exactly.
The cloud is the starting edge, the ground is the finishing edge, and the flash itself is the transition structure connecting them.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. What's fascinating here is how shifting our focus away from what is moving, the imaginary train, allows us to suddenly look at the complete geometry of the occurrence itself.
Oh, lightning flash.
Right, and this brings us to how the framework handles the inside of this event, because it isn't just an empty flash.
It has structure.
Exactly. In Pillar 9, the researchers use an internal geometry function, mathematically called ease of u, to parameterize the inside of this closed event.
Easy enough, you got it.
And it explicitly states this is not a classical flight path. They use these incredible geometric concepts to visualize how it's structured internally. Things like X shapes, front anchors, or folded envelope bodies.
Folded envelope bodies. That sounds like, I don't know, quantum origami or something.
That's actually a pretty perfect way to describe it.
But this raises a huge question about time for me. Because we normally think of time as this external engine, right? Like a motor driving a car down the highway.
Which is the classical view, yes.
So if a photon isn't a car driving down a highway, does it even experience time the way we think it does?
It does not. And this is a massive paradigm shift outlined in Pillar 4. The framework argues that time is not an external motor driving the photon forward.
Wait, really?
Really.
Yeah.
Instead, the photon event possesses its own inner structure, and that structure generates its own internal rhythm.
It makes its own time.
Basically, yes. When we look at light from our giant macroscopic perspective, we perceive that internal rhythm as wavelength and frequency. We see it as traveling through space.
But it's not actually traveling.
No. Fundamentally, the photon isn't being pushed by external time. It is a self-contained metric of its own rhythmic unfolding.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If the photon is a complete event generating its own rhythm, and it's acting like a piece of quantum origami, there have to be incredibly strict internal mechanics governing how it folds and unfolds.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it can't just be infinite random chaos. There has to be a cosmic speed limit or a rule book.
And there is. The model is governed by a ruthlessly strict budget, which they call the action budget in Pillar 2.
The action budget.
Yes. Now, to understand this, we need to clarify what action actually means in physics, because it isn't a car chase or a movie explosion.
Right. It's a very specific mathematical term.
Exactly. In physics, action is essentially energy multiplied by time. And in the quantum world, action comes in absolute, indivisible chunks.
Which we call Planck's constant, right?
Correct. Represented by the letter H, the PEM mathematical formula states that this single quantum of action, this one absolute chunk, must be distributed over the duration of the entire event.
So it's basically asking how the event spends its allowance.
That is the fundamental question the Photon Event Model asks. How does a photon divide up its single quantum of action internally to execute the transition?
Okay, so to use another analogy, is it like a battery draining over its lifespan?
Well, not exactly a battery losing juice, because the energy doesn't disappear or bleed out into the environment.
Oh, okay.
It's more like an accountant with a ruthlessly strict budget. The accountant is handed exactly one Planck's constant worth of action. They have to allocate exactly how much of that budget goes toward the internal geometry at any given micro moment of the event.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The event is an accountant allocating a fixed budget. And how it spends that budget is where those folded envelope bodies come back in, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because the framework introduces this concept of a roll function Q of U. I think that dictates folding and unfolding.
You've got it. That's Pillar 3. The internal space of the event is governed by this mathematical roll function, Q of U. When the function is greater than 0, it directs the action budget toward folding.
And when it's less than 0.
When it is less than 0, it directs the budget toward unfolding.
Now wait, hold on a second. A negative function in physics.
I know where you're going with this.
Right, because when people hear less than 0 in a quantum context, they immediately think of negative energy or exotic matter from science fiction movies.
Which is why the framework is extremely firm on clarifying this nuance. A negative half wave in this roll function does not mean negative energy.
Okay, good to clarify.
The energy side of the equation remains entirely positive and normalized. The negative value purely describes a functional counterroll.
So it's a directional thing, not an amount thing.
Precisely. It is a geometric reorientation acting within the exact same closed event area. It acts in opposition to the fold, but, and this is vital, it does not add up to double the total length.
It stays within the budget.
Always. The fold and the unfold happen within the same structural boundary, pushing and pulling against each other using the exact same capped action budget.
Man, so if the action budget is strictly capped and it's executing these positive and negative geometric rolls, this folding and unfolding means the photon is basically engaged in this intricate geometric dance.
A dance is a great way to put it.
It's packing and unpacking its energy to interact with space rather than just blasting through it like a cannonball.
And that intricate geometric dance is the engine of reality. This internal pacing, this folding and unfolding of the action budget, is precisely what gives rise to the macroscopic illusion of propagation.
The illusion of movement.
Right. We see a beam of light traveling from the sun to the earth, but what is fundamentally happening is a vast network of these closed structural events, mathematically folding and unfolding, coupling to the underlying geometry of the universe.
Coupling to the underlying geometry of the universe. Okay, this is where we really have to scale up.
Let's do it.
Because if this complex packing and unpacking geometry represents the true nature of a single photon, it must interact with the rest of the universe in a very specific way.
It has to, yeah.
And this is where PEM scales from being just a neat idea about light to being a massive structural bridge for all of modern physics.
What's fascinating here is how seamlessly it acts as that bridge, which they outline in Pillars 11 and 12. PEM describes itself as an open translation window. Think of it as a universal operating system.
So the big theories like loop quantum gravity, string theory, general relativity, they aren't competing software programs trying to delete each other.
No, not at all.
They're just different apps running on the exact same underlying architecture.
That is the perfect way to frame it. PEM provides the shared motherboard. It doesn't force any of these wildly successful theories into a foreign schema. It just shows them how they are already connected.
Let's actually walk through how it handles that translation, starting with loop quantum gravity, or LQG.
Good place to start.
Now, as a quick refresher for everyone, LQG suggests that space itself isn't a smooth, continuous fabric like a rubber sheet. It suggests space is made up of tiny, finite, interconnected loops. It's quantized. Space is basically medieval chainmail.
Correct. It's a network of geometric relationships. Now, how does a photon move through chainmail?
I have no idea.
Well, in PEM, the photon event doesn't move through it at all. It is inserted directly into these local network structures. Remember how we established that the photon transitions from state A to state B, and they are edges of the same event?
Yeah, the lightning strike.
Exactly. In the context of LQG, state B is not just an arbitrary destination.
Right, because there's no continuous space to just slide into.
Exactly. State B is selected through what Pillar 5 calls the timeless edge compatibility of quantum parameters.
Timeless edge compatibility. Translation, please.
It basically means the event finds the specific geometric loop in the chainmail that perfectly matches its unfolding structural shape. It locks in.
Oh, wow. So it's essentially fitting a uniquely shaped puzzle piece into the exact corresponding hole in the quantum geometry of space.
You nailed it.
The structural unfold of the photon is the key to the lock of space. Okay, what about string theory? String theory relies heavily on the idea that everything is made of vibrating, one-dimensional strings or filaments. It requires incredibly complex connections. How does a closed geometric event play nice with strings?
Well, string theory relies on thread and mode-like couplings to explain how different particles and states interact. PEM provides the raw connection points for this in Pillar 10.
How so?
Because PE defines the beginning and end of a photon event as edge sides of a single indivisible occurrence, it means no actual signal has to travel across space to connect them. The transition itself acts as what PEM calls a relational coupling seam.
So it eliminates the need for tiny messages to be sent back and forth between strings.
Exactly.
The connection is structurally baked into the event itself, which, if you think about it, completely recontextualizes quantum entanglement, right?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Entanglement, the idea that two particles can influence each other instantly across vast distances, has always been described by Einstein as spooky action at a distance.
Because it seems like information is traveling faster than light.
Right. But under PEM, there is no spooky action because there is no distance in the structural sense.
Oh, man.
The entanglement is just a shared structural seam within these geometric degrees of freedom. They are edges of a massive, closed topological event.
Okay, moving down the list of the big four, we have quantum field theory, QFT. This is essentially the gold standard right now, which says particles are just excitations or ripples in underlying universal fields. If the universe is a pond, a photon is just a ripple on the surface of the electromagnetic field.
And PEM fully respects that. It acknowledges that what QFT measures, the observable field excitations, the ripples, is completely mathematically accurate.
So it's not saying QFT is wrong.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But PEM exposes the deeper, complete event process happening behind that manifestation.
So if QFT sees the ripple on the surface of the pond, PEM is describing the exact geometric action and displacement of the invisible stone beneath the water causing it.
Precisely. It's the mechanism behind the ripple. And finally, that brings us to Einstein's masterpiece, general relativity, the physics of the massive. Planets, stars, galaxies, space-time curvature.
Which has notoriously refused to play nice with the quantum world.
For almost a century.
So how does an operating system based on tiny folded envelopes handle the immense gravity of a black hole?
By redefining what we are actually looking at, general relativity remains exactly what it is, a beautifully accurate macroscopic description of space-time curvature.
Okay.
But within the PEM framework, general relativity is reframed as an emergent shadow. It is viewed as the
Right, because we don't need a single magical equation that invalidates a century of brilliant science by Einstein or the quantum pioneers. We just needed the Rosetta Stone that allows those brilliantly deduced languages to finally translate one another.
But arriving at that Rosetta Stone requires a very specific methodology, which the researchers address directly in Pillar 13.
Oh, right. Because you might wonder, if PM is the operating system for all of physics, why focus the entire model specifically on the photon?
Exactly.
Why not start by analyzing something massive and obvious, like a black hole or the nature of gravity itself? Why is light the ultimate skeleton key to the universe?
Well, the framework asserts that the path of true knowledge must begin with the photon, mathematically speaking. You absolutely cannot systematize highly complex macro-level phenomena like matter, entanglement, gravity, or the fabric of spacetime without first capturing the absolute smallest closed action geometry event.
Which is the photon.
Yes, the photon event is the foundational building block.
It's like you can't write a novel if you haven't bothered to define the alphabet first.
Exactly. Methodically, you have to move from the elementary quantum of action to the quantum geometry transition, and only then can you scale up to emergent spacetime. And they introduce a fascinating metric for how the scaling up occurs in Pillar 7. They call it the emergent tension scale.
Okay, without bogging us down in the terrifying depths of the math, how does an emergent tension scale actually work?
It looks at how the closed photon event structurally couples to the quantum geometry we discussed earlier, the chainmail. But importantly, this tension is not interpreted as a classical force.
So it's not a push or a pull.
No, it is not gravity pulling an apple down from a tree or the mechanical acceleration of a rocket engine. It is the emergent, semi-classical tension of the transition body itself locking into the geometry.
So it's the physical tension of the puzzle piece snapping into the puzzle board, which we, on a massive scale, perceive as forces.
You've got it.
And we really should point out, this isn't just a theoretical thought experiment someone dreamed up over a weekend on a whiteboard. This is rigorous.
It is incredibly rigorous. The researchers at M-Frame Research have been systematically developing the groundwork for this since 2006. This is a 20-year evolutionary process of mathematical and physical testing.
The breakthrough milestone we're looking at today really hinges on their April 17th, 2026 publication.
Yes, a massive day for physics.
They lay down the fundamental mathematical foundation for topological modulation, which they affectionately call top mode. And they didn't just do the math, they ran physical waveguide tests.
Real-world experiments.
Yeah, they use vector network analyzers, essentially blasting precise radio frequencies to prove that geometric structures actually behave this way in reality. They even published all the raw physical data on Zenoda.
Which is a massive open science database.
Right, so anyone in the physics community can download it and verify the math themselves.
And that level of empirical rigor is what makes the translation window possible. By defining the internal parameterization of the photon so precisely through topological modulation and proving it physically, they gave the rest of theoretical physics a sturdy, undeniable hook to hang their respective hats on.
So what does this all mean? When you look up at a light bulb or the stars in the night sky, or even just the screen of the device you are listening to right now, the macro world we interact with every single day is built from the ground up by these incredibly precise, self-contained quantum events.
It is a universe built of closed geometric dances of folding and unfolding action.
Which raises an important question about us.
It really does.
If reality at its most fundamental level is just these timeless, structurally closed events coupling to quantum geometry, then our own classical observation of reality is just a shadow.
A macro blur.
Yeah, the way we feel time flowing, the way we feel physical forces acting upon our bodies, it is merely the emergent macroscopic blur of these topological modulations. We are gigantic, clumsy creatures experiencing the macro blur of a deeply precise, microgeometric reality.
It's humbling, honestly.
Okay, let's take a breath and recap the incredible journey we've just been on. We started by completely shattering the illusion of the particle in a box, throwing out the tiny flying sphere and replacing it with the photon event source, a unified transition for A to B.
We explored how this closed event operates on a strict action budget of Planck's constant.
Right, acting like an accountant, utilizing a complex internal dance of folding and unfolding geometry to pack and unpack its energy.
And we saw how this exact framework, the Photon Event Model, serves as a structural bridge, a universal operating system.
By deconstructing the photon, it unifies loop quantum gravity's chainmail, string theory seams, quantum field theory's ripples, and general relativity's macro shadow.
It is a paradigm shift that forces us to look not at the isolated objects in the universe, but at the complete structural events that weave the universe into existence.
And I want to leave you with a final, mind-bending thought to mull over today based on that internal geometry. We talk about the idea that the photon event generates its own internal rhythm rather than being pushed forward by some external ticking clock of the universe.
Yes.
If the fundamental unit of light isn't a physical thing moving through time, but rather a self-contained geometric event that creates its own internal time and rhythm, what does that mean for human perception?
Ooh, that's a deep rabbit hole.
Your brain, your eyes, your nervous system, they are all fundamentally interacting with and composed of these underlying energy structures.
Which generate their own time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is our human experience of time passing that relentless ticking clock we all feel every single day just the macroscopic blur of countless billions of these micro events folding and unfolding inside our own biology? Are we just riding the emergent macroscopic wave of a trillion tiny self-contained clocks? Think about that the next time you turn on a light switch. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of light. Stay curious, keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you next time.